Welcome to the Adhocracy Show. On today's episode,
Super Bowl commercials.
a rundown of the play-by-plays.
The game?
No, the commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm David Landeen.
And I'm JD Melville, and thank you for joining us on the Adhocracy Show, where we like to geek out about advertising, marketing, art, and design.
If this is your first time here, then there's a few things you should know. Number one, the subscribe button is right there, and you should hit it. Number two, we have episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And every Monday, it's Adhocracy News. Every Wednesday, it's a show like this. And every Friday, it's Fedora Friday, where we have some fun.
Absolutely. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. You may have now gone over every play-by-play with everyone at work. You may have read every article that really goes in depth on each commercial and points out every ad spend that happened during and after this show.
Yeah, but there's one thing that you haven't heard yet, and that's our take. So here we are.
We're going to talk about the good, the laughs, and the ugly of the Super Bowl.
Now, I found that the ads during the Super Bowl, this was kind of a different one. There wasn't a standout commercial. There wasn't that one big commercial that everybody's going to be talking about tomorrow that kind of won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we back in the day, growing up, there were so many little commercials that really stood out, that had the one funny thing that stood out. You had the Budweiser frogs, Budweiser. You had what's up? You had something that really stood out and kind of changed things. I mean, people have still said those things, and you can say those things today, and
people know. Well, most people.
But I don't feel that really happened here, and I think some of that is that we're seeing a very big change in how the Super Bowl commercials are done.
Yeah, now you have your YouTube teasers, you have your build-up pre-commercial for the big commercial, and even sometimes you have the big commercial and it's not over, it's then followed by something. So it's more of a campaign than a single commercial.
It's almost a vehicle to push to a large audience to get them either before and peak at the Super Bowl, or a campaign to push them on to something else after that fact. And so some of the campaigns we'll talk about today kind of include that.
Another thing I noticed was a lack of medical commercials.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. There was actually one sort of medical, but it wasn't medical.
Boom.
So let's move on.
Me intrigued.
Yes, let's move on to the good. We're going to talk about some of the ones that we really liked, some of the things that really I think worked well.
Yeah. One of the first commercials of the entire game was one of the best. The Ford Stuck commercial. That one was pain point marketing. They really hit pain points.
And you felt it. You really felt it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the best, I thought the kid who was upside down on his tricycle and the tricycle was stuck in his helmet. Oh, my word. I don't know if I've been that kid, but I felt for that kid. I mean, it was a pain point, and it was relatable, and it was great. And then they said, here's a car, and this helps you get unstuck. Yeah. So that was a great one.
Not bad. Next was Intel. Intel was sort of all over the place with this, but showing their technologies, how they really kind of showed their stuff, including the 360 replays. The big one for me that, like, you watched Lady Gaga's or halftime show.
Yeah.
And there were all these, things in the back, and I'm like, oh, how are they doing that? That's
got to be superimposed on television. Like, how are they seeing that?
It's a black thing. They could basically do that with graphics. But then at the very end of the halftime show, if you're paying attention, it talked about the drones that they used.
See, and I actually caught it during the show. I was like,
Did you?
Yeah, I was like, how are they doing that? Like, are those drones behind her? And they were, and I was amazed.
That was incredible.
And, like, Intel, great job. Audi, what will I tell my little girl? I'm a father, I have 2 daughters, and, the inner feminist in me was just, like, standing ovation, applauding, you've won everything, great job, Audi. I thought that it was a good speech, a good commercial. I don't really know how it relates to Audi. She was driving a car, but I still like the message.
Because she looked at the car and smiled, because
Audi
means success.
There you go. But I did like that commercial. Another one that was, okay, this was a controversial one, but we looked a little bit more into it, and we did put it on the good list. You may not agree, but
it was a party foul at first.
Yeah.
The yellow flags came out, but after further review...
Yeah. There was the
was
ruling
a
was
reversal.
overturned.
This was 84 lumber.
Yeah, the immigration one. It was a controversial commercial.
If you knew nothing about the thing is I watched the 84 commercial before, and it was sort of one of those. I thought they were going to be throwing away $5 million just to air what they had, what was being shown before, because it was just lumber, and it was like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah. So it's a story about a mom and a daughter, and it's looking like they're coming in from Mexico. The commercial itself was okay. It intrigued you. If you went to the website, you could see the end of the commercial. But the campaign was interesting because it wasn't about buying lumber.
It wasn't, and it was, and where it directed. If you go to Journey 84, that showed you the rest of the commercial, which was like, okay, I watched it again. It was like, well, I'm not sure. But looking further into it, their campaign was driving people to work for 84 Lumber, which was really incredible because and that's probably why this was the controversial one, and they couldn't show the rest of that campaign at the Super Bowl. Is that they're showing the wall, and that 84 Lumber builds a door into for people who want to work, who want to live, who want to strive. Yeah.
So controversial, a risk, but in the end, very creative marketing.
Interesting. It was a very interesting.
Not
play.
Your typical Super Bowl. The ending, if you kept watching after the Super Bowl, like right after it ended, Hyundai showed a commercial showing that like there are soldiers overseas who were able to come and have this 360 experience of watching the Super Bowl, and then like they looked over and next to them was a family member, and it was an interesting commercial. I mean, it had nothing to do with cars. Like that was what was in it. It had nothing to do with cars.
It was a feel good, and it was a. I mean, they talked about in the commercial that they made it possible for them to watch the game together to bring.
Yeah, so it was a car commercial, not showing a car once. Maybe they did show a car, but I don't remember. I was too busy crying. Another. Okay, so this is one that I'm gonna let you talk about because you touched on it.
So. Kind of in the beginning, there were no medical ads, except for there was a preview that started off as a medical ad. It showed someone, here it started talking about all the side effects, blah, 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 cure for wellness. And I tuned out. I completely turned off.
Because I was thinking, oh, it's a medical commercial. Okay, we got one.
I don't need medicine, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no toe fungus for me. So
but then things started getting weird. And in my days, it got really weird. And then I came back. It was an ad for a movie called The Cure for Wellness.
So that was, a interesting take on, like, you thought it was a commercial. Is it a commercial? Oh, wait, it's not a commercial. It's a trailer.
And it sort of had a feel, there was it was Cartoon Network Adult Swim little show that they put on in the middle of the night. That had the same kind of thing where things got really weird. It worked really well for a horror preview.
Yeah. All right, so those were our good. Those were the good. Now we move on to the laughs. These were the ones that they made you laugh. Whether they were good or not, they made you laugh.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of people talked about before the Super Bowl was how was this political climate going to affect the way the Super Bowl went or the commercials that were made. There were some that were politically charged, but they seemed to be pretty underlying. There were just a handful where it still kind of went with the funny. It still kind of went with everything. Everything was kind of same.
I did notice more sentimental, serious commercials this year, but you watch the Super Bowl because the commercials are funny. That's like, it's tradition. You gotta have some funny commercials. So here are the ones that we deemed as funny. Of course, the one you've probably heard of, because I think it was pretty popular, Melissa McCarthy, Kia. She's being called to save the rainforest, to save the whales, to save the ice caps, and every time she goes, she ends up getting hurt. Great old slapstick. Watching people fall down and get hurt, it's always going to be funny.
Playing highbrow and lowbrow at the same time.
Yep. And then in the end, she didn't have to go save the rainforest because she had her car, which was doing it for her, type of deal.
After that, we have avocados from Mexico, one that we talked about in some of our previous shows. This was great. Last year it was a weird one. Like it was like, okay, they're playing their first fiddle, but this year they got it right. The secret society.
Oh, man.
And like we're controlling the world, and how is this stuff getting out? Guide live streaming. That was a wonderful laugh. Great turn.
And if you watch the long version on YouTube, I thought it was even funnier. I mean, it was great comedy.
Yeah.
Martha and Snoop.
This was a great combination of two different, like, there was such a great contrast, right? And it was great because she's like, Snoop Dogg's looking for something. He's trying to remember. And Martha runs down and is just like, Martha Stewart. Everything's whipped up real quick. Atopia. But the one that you may have missed is that she asked him if he was looking for a can of bisque. And she, of course, referring to a soup, and him kind of going, wait, what was that last one? Because it sounds like cannabis. That was funny.
It was punny.
It was funny.
Skittles. Skittles has always been one of those where you feel like there's the creative and there's marketing, right? Mm-hmm. There's two sides to a commercial, making a commercial. There's like the creative side and there's the marketing side. And the creative side comes up with this crazy idea, and the marketing side kind of hones that into something. Skittles, I don't think they have the marketing side. They just have the creative side. They go with crazy, and it's great.
And it in some way works because it's candy, right?
Oh yeah.
Like what?
This was the Katie.
The teenager trying to get the attention of a lover.
Yeah. And trying to tap on her window, but the window's open, and the Skittles come in.
And the Skittles commercial, the campaign has always been a little bit funny and
out there.
A little out there.
Yeah.
And so the cop and the robber and the cop were funny. The badger at the end was a with like, okay,
all right,
that would have been funnier somewhere else. But
it was great.
It was funny, yeah. Next we have Buick with Cam Newton, where if that's a Buick, then my son's Cam Newton,
and that turns into Cam Newton. And that one with the group I was with, it got quite a few laughs. People falling down. And I mean, this one had a football star. It had little kids trying to tackle a football star. It had a supermodel. It had a guy. I mean, people falling down. It was just I would categorize that, like, seeing it. That's a Super Bowl commercial.
I also think there's that kind of funny where, okay, this would be Cam Newton and he's sort of like beating up on little kids and like way too good, and like, what if an adult played with kids, like an actual good player. It kind of put it in sort of a funny context, right? Like, this wouldn't really happen, but if.
Yeah. Well, and Buick their latest campaign has kind of been like, hey, look, guys, I know we were kind of the grandma car, but we've changed. Like, kudos to them.
The next one may have been missed, and the laughs may have not been there. This is the Sprint, where the dad pushes his car over the edge because he's dead now,
and he can get off his contract.
The commercial itself was, kind of run of the mill. They ran through. You can get out of the contract. The thing that was hilarious about it, that in the fine print, when the son turns to the father and says, "I thought that was illegal," or "Isn't that illegal?" The fine print came up and said, "Yes, this is very illegal." Great laugh.
Next one, we have World of Tanks. This was basically, pretty lowbrow. You have a tank that comes in and smashes things, and it's funny.
And they're playing off little TV teasers of your micro house, like it was like super, super tiny. They had the housewives, and but a tank always comes through. This was one of those. You kind of laugh at it, and then you're like, wait, what? World of Tanks?
But then again, I'm not the target audience, so maybe for other people that would go on the good list, or for others it would go on the ugly. But for us, it went on the funny list.
And Bai had sort of the same feel. Bai the drink, because you had Christopher Walken, and he's saying stuff, but then all of a sudden you realize he's
quoting NSYNC.
He's quoting an NSYNC song, and he turns over.
There's JT.
There's JT sitting there.
Yeah. And then you realize that it's a Bai commercial because he's talking about buy, and it's the drink Bai.
So it was kind of like, that was funny. Wait, what?
Very dry. That was like the opposite of like the Cam Newton one. Like this went from like that's very dry humor. And the last one, the T-Mobile 50 Shades, and we categorized that as uncomfortably funny.
It was really funny. It's playing again off of, you now have 50 Shades Grayer is coming out soon, and I mean, it's happening and you're kind of like, oh, but this is really funny.
This is funny, but I can't laugh because there's people around.
Their pick for actress on that was
spot on.
Perfect.
Just right on. Yep. All right, and now the ugly. Now the ugly means it was they were there. It was like so close to being on the good list or on the funny list, but
there was something wrong with it.
Just so close, and it's hard. It's hard to watch those when it's so close, especially as a marketer. You're like, oh man, like you almost had it. You almost had it, but you tripped at the goal line.
You tripped on your own feet trying to run it, like in the Super Bowl.
That was a sports joke.
That was a sports joke. Our first one is Snickers live commercial. Now, there were so many great things about this. First, the live commercial. We predicted that in our Season 8 that everything would be going live this year.
Yep, that was last year. But we were close. Anyway, heard it here first. The build-up was great. You knew they were doing a live commercial, but it just went too fast. It just was like, it was over before you understood what was going on. And they didn't, their joke was kind of there, and it was kind of funny.
And it was supposed to fail because that was what the commercial was, but it happened so quickly. And I think that's probably why commercials are what they are, is that you can cram. I mean, we talked about this with in the news segment a couple of times ago with this Google doing it 6 second. You can cram a lot of information within 6 seconds, where if it's not planned, if it doesn't go according in a live commercial.
Yeah, I just felt like there was something off with the timing throughout the whole thing. And
I kind of blinked and I was like, wait, hold on. What did I miss? What? Okay,
Snickers? Yeah, I wanted to love it, but my reaction was like, all right. No? Okay. It just didn't really have it. Terry Bradshaw, they're tied. It was as close as you possibly can get.
That was phenomenal because they're doing the sports casting stuff. He has the most perfect little spot, and we kind of point, I remember my wife, she's like, oh, what? He's got a stain. Obviously, that's got to be something, I'm like, it's too perfect because you don't spill right here, you spill here. There were it was too perfect. I'm like, I know they're going to come back to it. They didn't say anything about it, but they ran the commercial right after, and it seemed too soon.
Yeah,
because the commercial was like, "Oh, you're going viral, you're trending," and he's freaking out and running, and it was a great tie-in because it was like real to commercial.
It was a great idea. It was a great risk. They just again the timing was off. There was something that they could have just waited a little bit, given us time to realize what was going on.
Maybe a second view of him reporting.
Yeah, that probably would have been another $5 million. But hey,
probably
they could afford it. It's tied.
It's tied.
All right.
After that was Mobile Strike with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
This was just ugly all around.
This was the overuse of bad movie lines from the 80s of a tired action star.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to side with Trump on anything, but maybe there is a reason that The Apprentice ratings are down. All right. Anyway, so just that's my reaction down. All right. Good luck if we ever get subtitles. I just didn't like it. I just thought, come on, let's get you guys.
It is incredible how much money is being used for some of these apps. That kind of shows you how much money is being poured into Mobile Strike. There was actually World of Tanks, some of these just mobile app games.
They're huge. There's a huge market there, and I bet their audience was probably watching the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The Michelob Ultra, the
burpees and beer
don't go well together. Well, I wouldn't know, but burpees and beer.
That just
now
it made me hate CrossFit so much.
Well, I know, and being in Utah, you'll usually have. At the end of my marathons, there's not usually a beer tent. It's not as popular here, but in other states, there's always a beer tent at the end of a race, always, and people run for that beer tent, and there's all these. That's a big thing. Huh. But I don't. I think other people agree with you that. Yeah, you're not going to chug
after
beer and then run a marathon. That's
after I've worked out as hard as that. Because there was also this is not a Super Bowl commercial, but there is a new Silk commercial that has sort of a similar thing where it's talking about working out and then drinking Silk milk, and just like thinking of how much I want to just like, if I've overdone it, I'm going to drink something like beer or milk. That just,
Yeah.
I want water or Gatorade or something.
Next, Uncanny Valley. Some Uncanny Valley awards.
Uncanny Valley basically is in animation, you get something that looks, really good, really good, really good, and then it hits sort of a valley when you get closer to being real.
Yeah.
And it's sort of this is real. It looks really weird, and then it gets up to, completely real. And we had a couple of those this time.
So the Honda yearbook, I felt that was Uncanny Valley. I think they could have done the same commercial with a voiceover just showing pictures.
Yeah.
And it could have been just as good of a commercial.
But they were moving and talking, and it had the different...
Yeah, and it just didn't look real. It didn't look... I mean, granted, I know pictures don't usually talk, but it just didn't look... It was Uncanny Valley.
And they had to kind of animate it in a way that... I mean, it was sort of choppy and...
Yeah.
Because I specifically remember looking at Magic Johnson's one where... he's a younger kid, and the movement seemed a little bit weird.
I really think they could have just, anyway, done that voiceover. Humpty Dumpty, just weird. And I don't know if it's necessarily Uncanny Valley, but it's just like...
The commercial was also weird just because they had a teaser commercial, and if you didn't follow it, it felt broken.
Yeah, it was probably, yeah.
And as well,
broken.
As well, we have the Mr. Clean Sexy Dancing,
I did not like that commercial.
Which was kind of funny because, hey, bald men can also be sexy. But I also have a problem with that. It turned to like an unsexy like husband.
Well, and you pointed out they had done the gender swap. If it was this sexy animated lady whose husband was like all interested in her, and then she turned into like this frumpy old housewife.
It probably would have had kind of a different reaction.
It would have. Spuds MacKenzie. These were just kind of ones that I didn't get the reference because I'm young and not old. Spuds MacKenzie, and
he doesn't remember Spuds MacKenzie, and
the Easy Rider. Like
Spuds MacKenzie was sort of, like in the past years you had the Budweiser horses. It was some of it was good feeling, some of it was kind of funny and things like that, but. If you don't know who Spuds MacKenzie is, then you kind of missed it, right?
Yeah.
And so that it could be on strategy because it was for an older generation. But if you're advertising to as many millions of people as you are, you're taking a very segmented audience.
Yeah. So, same with the Mercedes Easy Rider. That was the biker gang one. I had no idea who the person was that walked into the Mercedes. They got in the Mercedes and drove off.
Mr. Fonda.
Yeah, that guy. As somebody I know would say, I'm too young to remember that. But it's, I don't know. I don't know if I should say like, hey, use references that everybody knows. Because then I mean, that could have been a very popular one towards a different audience. But for me, I felt like a lot of people even people I was with, like I don't get it. None of them drive Mercedes either. So I could be completely off on this one.
Well, that's our good, the laughs, and the ugly. What did you think? What commercial stood out to you? Was there anything that we've covered here that we were a little off on? Or is there something that you absolutely loved?
Yeah, hey, Internet, do you disagree with us about anything? Let's throw that out there.
Perfectly.
As always, thank you for liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to this channel. We appreciate everything that you do for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And make sure that you join us over on our social media networks. We're always commenting in there and talking and sharing more information.
Yep. And to end this, we're going to send you off with an amazing video because Wednesdays are hard.
Ow.